I think it's a question about finding solutions fast, because in this globally competitive, fast-changing world, that's where small companies can unseat big ones. And these big companies are potentially threatened by them if they're not innovating faster, quicker, problem-solving faster, quicker.
This is where it all begins, so say goodbye to all your fears, all your doubts. This is where they die. This is where we come to win, we come to fly. This is where we make our dreams come to life. Welcome to Innovation City.
Welcome to Innovation City, a podcast featuring the innovators, disruptors, and creators who are making things happen today. My name is Michael T. Johnson, and I'm here with my co-host Tyler Kelly. And we are in St. Louis, Missouri tonight. So we're at Venture Cafe St. Louis. And if you're not familiar with Venture Cafe is the largest gathering of innovators anywhere in the world. So if you're near a Venture Cafe City on a Thursday night, I highly suggest you visit, because I think you're going to have a good time. You're going to meet some good people. So tonight, I'm really excited to have Bill Donius with us tonight. Bill, thank you for being here.
Sure, thank you.
Thanks, Bill. Bill's the author of the book, which is a New York Times bestseller, Thought Revolution. Former banker and CEO, he teaches his creative method of problem solving to a wide range of corporations and employees, and also blogs at Huffington Post. With 30 years of experience in the corporate world, Donius was chairman and CEO of Pulaski Bank here in St. Louis, where he oversaw the bank's eightfold growth over 12 years. You took it public and stuck around a few years after that, and it's a
actually
success story.
20 total.
Just a few, right?
Not anybody's counting.
But while you were there, you kind of discovered this way to kind of unlock some of your inner potential, what you call is like your inner genius, like
right.
this hidden app, if you will.
Right.
Tell us about that.
Well, it actually came from my greatest weakness, truth be told, was that although I was succeeding at business and the bank was doing well, I had an Achilles heel in my personal life, and decided to deal with it. And I thought, gosh, it's not enough necessarily to just say, oh, I'm going to be a successful business guy, but not successful or feeling good about my personal life. And specifically in my dating life and relationships, there was a brokenness there, which I didn't know what was wrong. I was like the Jerry Seinfeld, there's something wrong with everybody I dated. And so it wasn't until I took the time to enroll into therapy and come head to head with it that I learned a version of this method, and that I ended up writing about later and turning into a sort of a business app. But the work that I did in therapy was based around the inner child movement, which is a big thing in psychology, and it really helped me work through and discover where I was stuck and why, and then move past it. So then years later, and it shows you how oftentimes important context is. In the CEO role at the bank, I was faced with an important decision, and I'm like, gosh, I wonder if I should use that process that I learned a version of in therapy years ago, and when I used it and it helped me in this decision-making process, I thought, wow, there's something here that's valuable. And so I started using it at the bank and decisioning and thinking about growth and the company and who to hire and where to go and how to expand. And it was very valuable. And because it's unorthodox, I didn't really talk about it there because it was weird, and I learned it in therapy. And the version I've come up with is a much more business-friendly approach, mainstream approach, which is why I guess ultimately I took the time to write the book. But it was just very valuable.
So the app, what is the app?
That's maybe a loose term. It's a present day term, and I guess one of my challenges is to actually develop an app that could be on the phone that we could use and at our fingertips. But the actual app is a way of activating the neural pathway to the right hemisphere of our brain to get to that place that Roger Sperry won a Nobel Prize for his discovery, that place is where intuition, creativity, problem solving, artistry, our higher consciousness all exists there. And so the theory is if we can get there, we can potentially make better decisions, get unstuck when we're stuck. It's wonderful because we don't have to, do the old-fashioned sleep on it or drive down a country road waiting for inspiration or wait for a dream to occur. We can do this on demand and boost our thought process essentially.
Yeah. So, I'm curious. So tell us about how like this method works and how we can access this part of our brain.
So in one way, it's very simple, and in another way, it's tough because and it's tough for people that are type A who think they know it all and they know everything and they don't need anything else, and so they're gonna have a tough time doing it because for this to work, you have to be willing to suspend disbelief. And for this process to work, it involves activating, as I mentioned, the neural pathways to the right side of the brain. And it turns out that we can do so by using our non-dominant hand as the activation point. And they did research, interestingly enough, at Yeshiva University where participants that squeezed a ball were more creative than those that didn't. And in this case, we're using the combination of a pen to activate the neural pathway, but importantly, this is where it takes a little bit of finesse, and which is why I decided to write a whole book on this to get people into this habit and explain how it works in a more comprehensive fashion. Is that you have to be willing to let go and trust that it's possible that you can hear a question, see a question, and that activation will occur when you're holding something in your non-dominant hand, and an answer, a solution will come forth without actively trying to think about it. So I know that sounds really bizarre that that's even possible, and that's why when I do this work, when I speak around the country and even the world to a smaller extent, in Italy and Ireland on this topic, it's really about trying it, and I say to people, just judge for yourselves, test it and see if it works, and go from there.
That's cool. I was listening to your TEDx talk a couple days ago, just in preparation, and you asked that question about which animal are you, and I had an answer, and then you're going through the let's go ahead and change it up, switch, do the handwriting exercise, and I never did that because I'm listening, and I'm thinking to myself as type A, this is silly. Although I know personally that it works, right? But just in that moment, my dominant thought is like, oh, but you're right on. Like you just have to suspend disbelief.
Well, we
just do it.
We want to. The way our brains are wired, it's great in many ways, but in some ways they work against us because we tend to want to stay in our comfort zones and do the same thing over and over again, and we are familiar creatures and we're comfortable with certain things, and we don't want to deviate because we get into that sort of winning formula and we're like, oh, why change? But and that's fine for most things, but that's why I think it's particularly valuable in those cases where we're stuck with a habituated thought or pattern or process, or in the parlance of the book, we're doing something, we're telling ourselves a lie basically about why we haven't made time to go to graduate school or fix something in our relationship, or why we don't like our boss, or we haven't, whatever it might be. We choose to, sadly, in many cases, stay stuck rather than deal with it because we just don't know what else to do. And so, absent that spark that might happen, for Steve Jobs, he dropped acid and moved to India for a year. But for most of us, we're not going to do either, right? It's like we've got family and work and things to do, kids and whatever to do here. So we have to find a way to help us be better problem solvers, better thinkers, and especially when it comes to if we are in an area or some part of our life isn't working. That's when it's really important, instead of staying in that bad zone, staying stuck. It's like, no, you don't have to. You can figure out why and then fix it. So that was part of the inspiration for me in the book, and taking the time to write the book. I did 200 interviews, and I really got the validation seeing that it not only was that true for me and what I had dealt with, but it was true for others, that other people could learn this very quickly and then apply it to questions, problems they were dealing with in their life, and resolve them, or make great headway at least towards resolving them.
Yeah, I mean, so I haven't personally tried the method that you're talking about, like in your TED Talk, where it's, write something down and then write it down with your.
We can do it right now on air if you want.
Yeah, that would be cool.
Don't tempt me.
But it does sound very similar to some other things that I've heard people talk about. Like, we work with creative teams, and there's things that say if you cross your arms, that helps unlock some creativity. Yeah. Or even with children, I've seen, like, if you're dealing with a children that's about to throw a fit, like if you can get them to cross their arms and grab their earlobes, that for some reason it seems like that's tapping into the same kind of thing that you're talking about.
Yeah, I think there's so much out there that we in the general public just don't learn about, because we don't really need to necessarily, and we're not trying to, and so we don't. But there's so much, I think, that's coming in the area of neuroscience, because they still know that 3-pound organ in our head is still the least understood thing in the world, and how it works, why it works, all the ways that it works. So I think in the years ahead there's going to be a lot more that comes forth and helping us, think better, faster, clearer, make better decisions, just use our brain in different ways than maybe we know how to do today. Because how is it that and I did some research when I was writing the book, and found interesting correlation between Werner Heisenberg, Albert Einstein, Isaac Newton, Marie Curie, Bill Gates, Steve Jobs, Mark Zuckerberg, over a 400-year period. What do you think it is?
I'm gonna guess that they're left-handed.
That's a good guess, but not there. There is at least one or two that are in that group. But
I think I know the answer, because I've heard you talk about it. But it was just the age of their greatest discoveries.
Yeah, and sadly, that age is 30. They were all done. Each of those 8 was done with their big idea, breakthrough idea, big discovery at age 30. So I'm thinking that, and it was, disappointing doing this research, because I was well past 30 doing it, and I'm thinking, gosh, I may have missed my big thing already. But so I think of this work really as an anecdote, and as an anecdotal way to access our brains in a way that we can't otherwise do so beyond 30. And even for people under 30, it's a way of going into our brains in a different fashion. And it feels to me, after doing this like for 21 years now, it feels to me that I'm able to kind of bypass the traditional, conventional thought process and get to what Sperry's discovery was. Dr. Sperry discovered that right side is not just separate from, but independent from the left. So that there are things going on there that if we can get to that independently, we can get a truly independent and different point of view. And that is absolutely what it feels like for me all these years later. I still enjoy the opportunity when I'm working with clients or individuals to go into my own thought process and say, what else can I ask? What else is there? Is there another solution I haven't thought of? When I'm writing a piece for the Huffington Post or a blog piece, I'll be, okay, how can I make this piece stronger? And it's both good and bad news, because I'm always kind of pissed that there's an idea that I just haven't thought of.
Wow.
I rack my brain. I spent 2 hours on this, and 30 seconds later there can be an idea, maybe a better title, something I completely missed.
And it's that quick.
It's
Wow.
there on demand, and it can be added in without having to sleep on it, or delay or wait. So that's the real value, is there's just more there. So what if all of us could get access to that place and be better, more creative problem solvers, thinkers, like when we need it, not like a day later when we go, oh, I wish I had thought of this in this meeting. I wish I had said this to my boss when he said that. Or, it's like, yeah, it's valuable. And part of it is the timing is valuable. If we can get it as we need it, that's valuable.
That's key.
Yeah. So I'm curious, we're in kind of like an innovation entrepreneurial community here. I'm curious if you're seeing like kind of common challenges that people have, like is everybody kind of stuck in a way of thinking that's holding them back? Do you see common things all the time in areas like this?
That's a great question. I think that yes, I would say, but in differing kinds of ways, because I have the advantage to work with big global brands like the Hitachis, the Kawasaki's, Walt Disney Studios, Aon, brands like National Association of Realtors, the UAW. And so it's kind of astounding in a way that a big company with lots of resources and tens of thousands of employees can get stuck on something. And because I think what happens is it's not necessarily that the whole company is stuck on it, but it's the top managerial team hasn't resolved it, or an answer hasn't filtered up, maybe because they haven't asked, or the circumstances haven't been right. But so they can, it's amazing that a giant company can get stuck. But then I like, and I'm here weekly, monthly, mentoring startup companies for Capital Innovators and the Venture Cafe, Venture Space in St. Louis, and I see them, as companies of two or one, maybe, stuck on something, and so in both cases, I like the odds with the bigger company because if you have 100 people in a room thinking about something, the odds are it's going to be a better solution than one. But if that 100-person think tank effectively doesn't have the authority to implement, then maybe I'll put my odds on the singular entrepreneur that goes, wow, this is a good idea. I can do this tomorrow, and make this pivot. So I think it's a question about finding solutions fast, because in this globally competitive, fast-changing world, that's where small companies can unseat big ones. I mean, look at Motorola losing and getting displaced and going from one to, out of existence in a short period of time of 5 years or something. So how do these big companies, respond quicker? And because the small companies are starting in there are 2,000 accelerators around the United States, incubating companies, and there are lots of startups, and these big companies are potentially threatened by them if they're not innovating faster, quicker, problem solving faster, quicker.
As we think about this, some of the stuff that I'm seeing is that I think we're at a time where kind of companies and individuals are waking up to this idea of leveraging whatever they can to do exactly what you're talking about, like unlock their way of thinking, or sometimes people talk about like biohacking or trying to access different things that help them just to be better. What are you seeing that you think sounds promising or you're excited about that you see in the community as a whole in that regard?
You mean in terms of methodologies or in terms of product solutions?
Maybe not. I mean, maybe not product solutions, but maybe even just in general, the way that I think people are starting to approach problems differently or think differently when they approach problems. And maybe that does lead to a methodology or a product solution like you're talking about. But
I think that that people are much more impatient, and that's a good thing, and want to test, go to market, figure things out faster. And I think the 90 million millennial strong generation is a good thing, because they are pushing and want things faster, better, differently, and they're agitating and disrupting, which is good for all of us, I think, as humans. on the planet, and I think because of that, everybody else is trying to work a little bit smarter and faster too, realizing, oh, we're not just trying to get 10% incremental improvement every year anymore. That doing that might put the whole company out of business in 5 years, because we may just get, our market may be disrupted. So I think that healthy impatience, I think, is really good, and the ability to test things, do things, try things, and that can be done in lower risk ways that don't create like catastrophic failures. So I think that's a plus.
As we're getting ready to wrap up, I wanted to ask you just your thoughts on St. Louis in general. You call St. Louis home part of the time, and you've been Pulaski Bank was a St. Louis institution, and so St. Louis has had its ups and downs. Where do you see St. Louis now and just the trajectory?
Sure. I think St. Louis is, to directly answer your question, is a great place to live, to recreate, to enjoy, life culturally, socially. The people are warm, welcoming. The first thing, I meet a lot of people that move here or that come into an accelerator program and decide to stay. And they say, and I was having coffee with one this morning, and what they say is that it's so friendly, it's so affordable, the people are nice, and there's a lot to do, with the museums, the sports teams, the different places, different parts of the city to live in, architecturally interesting things to do. People are friendly, so it's a little bit slower pace, which most people like because they don't feel it's too frenetic, and so I think it has a great future because the city has really invested in this entrepreneurial ecosystem and taken it very seriously. There's a number of startup funds and there's an Arch Grants program, Capital Innovators, Cultivation Capital, WashU is here, St. Louis U is here, the Danforth Plant Science Center, the biosystem area, the entrepreneurial ecosystem. There's a lot. This where we are right now in Cortex, and this district is a whole venture district that is just teeming with companies and new ideas and possibilities. So because people can live here more reasonably and less expensively, the company's burn rate is lower, so they can take their funding of $100,000, $200,000, whatever it is initially, and make it last a lot longer. Get help. People are helpful in the support communities. Get mentored. Find an attorney. Find accounting. Find whatever resources they need, and find that it's a great place to be. It's not, and perhaps because those other cities are so crowded relatively, the Bostons, New Yorks, the Los Angeles, that it's harder to compete in for space, talent, all those kinds of things.
I agree.
You guys are here?
Yeah, we're here. We love it here.
Yeah.
So,
awesome.
Bill, how can people get the book? How can people get in touch with you and your work? Tell us all about all that.
Sure. The book is, I believe it was the last publication by Simon & Schuster. The updated version came out in 2014. But I think it's still in hopefully, knock wood, in bookstores, and I think most people today just buy it through Amazon or an online bookstore. Thought Revolution: How to Unlock Your Inner Genius, and you want to make sure to buy the updated version because that includes the part on business and how this works in the workplace. My website, williamdonius.com, is the DONIUS, is probably the easiest and best way. They can link right to me by message through that site, and I enjoy responding to people. I get many people that reach out and have read the book, have a particular question, or want to apply something or figure out something that doesn't make sense. So that's interesting to me to hear what's going on, and I like helping people that way. So it's all good.
Well, awesome. Well, Bill, it's been amazing having you. I'm excited to try some of the stuff that we've heard about, and thank you.
I should also mention for ideation sessions is where this work has gone. Working with teams in companies, big or small, it's a great way of breaking through a problem, getting 20 to 600 people together in a room, focused on the problem, using this process to resolve it is I think that in my time the fastest way I've seen to solve a problem, because we can solve it in potentially 2 hours.
Wow.
That's great.
This is amazing. Bill, thank you for being on
Great.
Innovation
Thank you
City.
very much for the invitation. I appreciate what you guys are doing, and appreciate your support of Venture Cafe, where I'm on the board. So you guys are awesome here and helping us, and appreciate your work in general. So thanks for the invite.
Thank you, Bill. For more episodes, visit innovationcity.co. Be sure to subscribe, rate, and review. And if you're in St. Louis, visit us on a Thursday night. Details at vencafstl.org. And connect with us on social at We Are Slam or at Venture Cafe STL. Thanks for listening.
This is where it all begins, so say goodbye to all your fears, all your doubts. This is where they die.